Tonight begins another week of Overwatch League action, and there's only 3 weeks left to determine the playoff picture, in terms of the fight for a top 6 automatic berth, or a place in the top 12 for the play-in tournament. So just like last week, let's have a look at where every team currently stands, before looking ahead to the crucial matches that could majorly affect the whole playoff picture. At the end of Stage 4, Week 2, the overall standings look like this. We now know for certain that the San Francisco Shock have joined the Vancouver Titans and New York Excelsior in booking their automatic playoff place within the top 6, following their win over the Gladiators, whilst at the other end of the table, the Toronto Defiant have now joined the Washington Justice and Florida Mayhem as one of the sides who are mathematically out of the running for a spot in the top 12, following their defeat to Philadelphia this past week. There is still plenty of playoff implications still to uncover. However, let's get straight into discussing how Stage 4's second week has affected the race for the top 6. Thanks to this really cool graphic produced by Captain Planet and his own research, which I'll link below in the comments, we can see the teams that could still possibly make the top 6 and what percentage chance they have of achieving this. These teams, in order of his scale, are the LA Gladiators, London Spitfire, Hangzhou Spark, Seoul Dynasty, Philadelphia Fusion, Shanghai Dragons, Atlanta Reign, Guangzhou Charge, Chengdu Hunters, and unbelievably, the Dallas Fuel. Now of course, again like last week, we can quickly eliminate the complete outsiders like the Charge, Hunters and Fuel, as I'm telling you now that they're not going to make the top 6, especially with only half of those places still available. If you're really interested though, Captain Planet explained that the 5 things that would need to happen for Dallas to make the top 6, and to be honest, is quite ridiculous. Firstly, the Spitfire or Gladiators would have to lose all their remaining matches, whilst the Fuel need to win all of their own remaining matches, mainly in 4-0s, as they'd have to overcome a horrible map differential. Furthermore, neither the Fusion nor the Dynasty could win more than one match, and lastly, either the Spark or Dragons would have to win 3 or more of their own matches, but it couldn't be both at the same time. By all means, Dallas fans can place their bets. As we will see later on, I think even a crack at the top 12 is looking like a long shot at the moment for the side, let alone the top 6. Putting aside the numbers for the minute, I would still agree that for 2 of the 3 remaining places in the top 6, the clear favourites and frontrunners, the LA Gladiators and London Spitfire. Now I'm completely aware that both went 1-1 this week, but they still control their own destiny as things currently stand. The Gladiators of the 2 I thought had actually a really impressive week. They battled their way to a 3-2 victory over the Hunters, who appeared to be quite a tough opponent at this stage, before then just falling short to the Shock, who seemingly remain one of the strongest teams in the league at the moment. Their performance this past week showed the team primarily at their best, rather than their lacklustre loss in the opening week of Stage 4 against Houston. Like London, they are 1 win ahead of the other contenders here, and with their upcoming fixtures against Dallas, Hangzhou and the Valiant, I see them clear favourites in each, which should see them over the line. London started off the week brilliantly with a win over the electrifying Charge, but then all the momentum unravelled in a sloppy and messy 3-0 loss to Florida. Had they won that, they'd almost be home and dry in my opinion, but from their remaining 3 fixtures against the Titans, Outlaws and Reign, I think they now still might need 2 wins, and it's only because of the tough schedules of those below them that I reckon they'll still sneak in, but the loss to the Mayhem could prove extremely costly in 3 weeks' time. What about the others competing for the top 6? Let me start with Hangzhou, who I found the most interestingly placed within Captain Planet's percentages of qualification. His current analytics suggest that they're most likely to take that final space in the top 6, but judging from their performance in their opening 2 matches, as well as their upcoming schedule, I actually think they are in one of the toughest spots of all the teams here. To put it simply, they've looked really poor so far this stage, with the team as a whole struggling to adapt to 2-2-2 roll-log. They still have to face New York, Chengdu, Dallas and the Gladiators, and right now I'd only be confident in picking up a win over the Fuel, so they may have to rely on their current win tally to help them, but personally I don't think it's good enough, especially factoring in a very possible chance that their map differential goes into the red, and I think the Spark are in some very serious trouble in the battle for the top 6. What about the immediate chasers in Seoul, Philly and Shanghai? Fascinatingly, they play some similar tough opponents, whilst the Dynasty face both in the coming weeks. And consequently, I believe that the top performer of these 3 during that time will be in the best position of making the top 6 the way things currently stand, with the emphasis primarily on Seoul, given their chance to defeat both and add to their far superior map differential. But should the reverse happen, the scorelines could play a huge part in determining who out of Philly and Shanghai makes it in the end. This then leaves the Atlanta Reign, who I've left till last, as they are a new serious contender in my eyes, unlike this time last week. Following a bright opening to Stage 4, they dominated the 2 matches last week, with a 4-0 win over Paris and 3-1 win over Houston. They are arguably one of the most informed teams at the moment, but they are yet to be truly tested. This will happen in Week 4, when they play against both the Justice and Spitfire. However, a couple of victories here would make them incredibly likely to finish 7-0 this stage, with only matches against Dallas and Boston in Week 5. And given the hurdles approaching the teams currently ahead of them, it wouldn't be impossible for them to overturn a 2-match difference in the standings and sneak into the top 6, remembering how strong their map differential is, but we'll have to wait till the end of Stage 4 Week 4 to truly know. Yet whilst the fight around the top 6 has arguably become more clouded and scrappy, I'd argue that in the space of a week, the playoff race for a top 12 position has become a lot clearer, with much more obvious favourites and underdogs. I understand that it's not impossible for Hangzhou, Seoul, Philadelphia, Shanghai or Atlanta to potentially drop out themselves, but I personally think it's very unlikely by my own predictions of how the rest of their matches go. So for this week, I'm going to leave them out. But like I said last week, should the situation change over the course of this next week, I'll rectify this in my next video. Equally, at the bottom end of the spectrum, Boston, Houston and Paris are still within a distant shout of challenging for a top 12 spot. But just like the top 6 long shots, I just don't see the almost impossible dreams coming to fruition, looking ahead at their upcoming fixtures. And for the team with the least chance, Paris, again I'll refer to Captain Planet's permutations for their path into the top 12. To start with, Paris have to win all the remaining matches, and I don't think that's going to happen. But let's say it does. To qualify, they'd still need both the Uprising and Hunters to lose all their matches, whilst both the Fuel and Valiant lose 3 of their remaining matches, just showing how unlikely their road to the top 12 currently is. Therefore, in my eyes, the way things currently stand, I think the theoretical last 2 slots for my top 12 come down to the Guangzhou Charge, Chengdu Hunters, Dallas Fuel and LA Valiant. Let's start with the current teams that occupy these spots, and also my personal favourites come the end of the season, in the Charge and Hunters. Of these 4 teams, this pair have clearly looked the strongest and brightest with some really impressive displays, most notably the Charge's 3-2 win over Philly, and Chengdu's 4-0 demolition of New York. Both of these teams sit 2 games ahead of the other 2 in the standings, and whilst not exactly straightforward, their remaining matches are definitely winnable, with a lot of them coming against sides that sit roughly in a similar spot, or below them in terms of the power level of 2-2-2. So I believe they'll pick up 1 or 2 more wins that will see them through. The biggest challenge comes from the Valiant, whose main advantage right now is their map differential, which is significantly better despite being 2 games behind, and I think they are most similar in terms of strength to both Guangzhou and Chengdu. I think that their Map 5 loss to Seoul last week, however, is really going to haunt them, as they have 2 must-win games in the next 2 weeks against Florida and Boston to just keep them in touching distance. The problem is that even if they win both of these, they might need to still pick up 1 or maybe even 2 wins in Week 5 against the LA Gladiators and Shock. This just seems too steep of a hill to climb, but let's see how they do over the next 2 weeks. Finally I reached Dallas, who despite their decent chances in Captain Planet's model, I reckon are all but dead and buried in their quest for a top 12 spot. In Week 3 alone, they have to face the Gladiators and Shock, and given how impressive they've been in the first 2 weeks of 2-2-2, I just don't see it happening. Their other 3 matches are against the Spark, Charge and Reign, and with all 3 battling hard for playoff positioning, I genuinely don't see how the Fuel can pick up 3 wins to even realistically challenge those currently in the top 12. So for a second straight season, I think it's time for fans to give up on their playoff hopes and look ahead to improvement in 2020. Taking this all into account, let's look ahead at Stage 4, Week 3, and piece together which are the most important matches to look out for in terms of their effect on the playoff race and overall standings. Tonight, the key one is clearly the contest between the Guangzhou Charge and Seoul Dynasty, with the winner picking up a massive amount of momentum, whilst the loser could find themselves in a spot of bother. But don't sleep on the opening match between London and Vancouver, which should be a cracker. For Day 2, nothing screams out as too massive, but watch out for upsets shaking up the playoff race if Boston defeat the Justice or Dallas beat the Gladiators. Day 3 meanwhile is highlighted by the Hunters match against the Spark, which could determine if the Spark are still in the top 6 hunt or not. Whilst on Day 4, I'd highlight the match between the Charge and Excelsior, for depending upon Guangzhou's result, they could either have locked in or tripped up in their battle around the top 12. And with that, we reach the end of my second look into the playoff race, and I'd like to thank you for watching. I might be uploading another World Cup video tomorrow, otherwise you can look forward to another Contenders video over the weekend. So if you enjoyed and don't want to miss out, please like, subscribe and follow me on Twitter for this continuing Overwatch League coverage and content, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.